What's going on, guys? So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the pros and cons I found so far in reviewing the Samsung QN90A to be specific. This is the US 55-inch variation of this. So if you have a larger size that you're looking at, you might want to look elsewhere because I'm only reviewing this particular size, the 55-inch version specifically. Now, the pros and cons that I found are kind of be all over the place, so just try to keep up with me because it's not like scripted or anything. I'm just going to be talking to you like a person here. Essentially, one of the best things about this TV is going to be the sharpness in 4K. 4K content is stunning. It'll blow your mind. It's breathtaking. And that's whether you're using the SDR variation, and even in the HDR stuff that I was looking at on the Spears and Munsell disc, it was still pretty impressive. Not the most impressive I've ever seen, but it was impressive enough. It was okay, but I still prefer 4K without HDR. That's just a personal thing for me. I really don't like HDR at all at this time. I still think they need an industry standard, and there are a whole bunch of other reasons. So essentially, I go back to SDR, 4K SDR, no HDR. And for those asking how you disable HDR, you disable HDR through your source box, like your PlayStation, your Blu-ray player, wherever the HDR is coming from. Don't use built-in TV apps because you won't be able to do it that way. That's how I avoid using HDR. Now, that being said, the highlight placement on this TV is spectacular. So unlike full array local dimming televisions for the most part, where they kind of miss where the highlight should be placed and over brighten, this TV almost nails it perfectly every single time. And that really has me impressed because that's one of the harder aspects of television to get correct. And this TV does it like it's nothing. I'll try to lower my ISO. I don't know if it's too bright and it's kind of hiding those details. The camera footage will not be 100% accurate, so please don't use it as an accurate guide to what I'm saying here. But essentially, highlight placement is amazing. You see every little particle. I mean, it's amazing. It's not OLED amazing. I'm going to be very upfront about that. But it's amazing enough that you'll be like, wow, that's really quite stellar. Now, an important thing to note is also my camera does have a bit of a red push. It's going to juice up colors. There's no real way to account for that. I just, unless I'm throwing it into an editing software and trying to remove all that stuff for you, I don't really have a way of showing you everything I'm seeing. So I can't stress, seriously, just listen to what I'm saying here. There's a bit of a red push, so skin tones will have a little bit more red to them, and red will be a little bit more juiced up, but the red on this TV is really juiced. So that red as it comes in right now, as I'm looking at it with my naked eye, that was just like really striking and very red, and that's something I like personally. I like a rich ruby looking red, but this is kind of like a little bit too pink of a red, so I think that's something that they might want to work on. But I think overall the highlights are really what's going to impress most people when you see the highlights, and the black levels are good. The black levels aren't the best I've ever seen. Samsung advertises this as a blooming free TV. You're not getting that. That's not going to happen. But I would say that highlights are more than enough to impress you. So like even on the Guerrilla Games logo, I didn't have any kind of black level abnormalities or anything like that. And I'm just going through trailers here to show you what it looks like, and each scene that I'm looking at, I'm finding that I'm quite pleased and impressed with what this is doing. And this is just over YouTube. I did watch some content off of the Spears and Munsell UHD benchmarking disc or evaluation disc. And again, it was really impressive. I think also one of the cool things with this TV is that contrast just brings sharpness to another level with the mini LED. Now, it's not, when I say another level, it's not like beyond everything you've ever seen with OLED, but that extra level of brightness with the level of like sharpness behind it that we were looking for with a mini LED is impressive. And I don't have a good way of explaining it any other way outside of it's just impressive. Now, for those who may have felt like I'm bashing this TV or I'm focusing too much on negative aspects of it, I'm just really driving it home that you will have blooming, and I will do it again right now. You will have blooming on this TV. It is not going to be as bad as on a low-end full array local dimming television, but it is also not going to be as good as what you were expecting to where it could replace OLED or something like that. This is not an OLED slayer. It's not an OLED killer in any aspect of the word. You will have moments where you can get OLED level of black, like when you're on a 25% to, I would say, even upwards of 50% window of brightness. That covers most of the screen, and you still have black edges around that. The blooming is basically non-existent on those types of logos. But when things start to get to a 2% through, I would say even on some occasions, a 10% window of brightness, you may run into some issues. Now, 10% handles it a little better, But the smaller windows, like a 1%, 2%, 5%, that the little tiny highlights, like clusters of light, like what you're seeing as Miles Morales walks through the city right now, if it was on a black background, those clusters of lights that are flashing, that would be blooming. And, so this isn't going to survive OLED tests for those people who might want to try that kind of thing. I don't really care about this developer at all, so I'm going to try to find something else. We'll probably put on the extended demo of Ratchet and Clank here. Like right now as this square comes in, I notice very faint blooming around the edges, but it's nothing game breaking. Same thing with the PlayStation logo. Same thing with the Insomniac logo. No blooming, pretty black. And I think if that's what you're looking for as games load in, you're fine. But just be mindful, some loading screens where they have black backgrounds with bright objects in the bottom left or bottom right corner of your screen will be a problem. Occasionally, as I was saying, you're going to have Starfield problems, though. That's not occasional. So if you're watching something like Star Wars, Star Trek, Guardians of the Galaxy, something where there's a lot of stars involved, you're going to see a local dimming problem where it just dims down too much. But, I mean, it's kind of like you have to weigh up the options. Some people would rather see the clouding and the blooming to see those stars. So I can't speak for everybody here. That's why I say this is going to be a good or an okay to a good TV, depending on the personality that you have. It's really going to kind of vary around that. And many people might just say OLED is the better option because you don't have to worry about blooming or winning a panel lottery out the gate. You don't have to really do half of what you have to for an LED to make sure that that stuff's controlled, and it is cheaper, especially at this point where they're wanting like $17.99 right now, currently launch pricing for this television. That's a bit much. When the C10 right now, everyday price, I've seen it at like $13.99, $14.99. That's a big difference considering the C10 does spank this TV. And I'm just going off of memory when I'm saying that. I'll do an official comparison and everything, but from what I remember, the C10 definitely spanks this TV. Like, definitely. There's no doubt about that. And I mean, it's hard because it spanks it in an overall perspective, but the highlights are very impressive on this TV, and I think that's what keeps my eye gravitating towards this display. Now, there is a problem color on this display. Blue is the problem color. So no matter what you try to do, blue is always just going to look off, right? Especially the cyan color, that's not as good as I would have hoped it to be. I have gone about creating settings that get it as close to a proper level of cyan as I could, and got it a lot better, but it's not as nice as I've seen it on some TVs like LG, Sony, TVs like that. Now, also, when we talk about performance, game mode is a little wonky, I've noticed. Game mode is hit or miss, so sometimes it's overly dimming, sometimes it's showing blooming. You can run into far and away way more blooming in game mode than in any other mode, and this has been pretty typical with Samsung's TVs as of late. So they're not really listening to consumer feedback on that, and game mode still has blooming on their flagship TVs. I'm expecting this to follow through even into their top-of-the-line 8K TVs, so if you're expecting it to be different, I would say look out for that because I don't expect it to be different at all. I think they're just going to keep doing what they want to do, and c'est la vie there, I suppose. Now, in terms of picture options and feature set, I am disappointed that you don't have the ability to access your color space directly and know which one it is. They are right back to auto, native, and custom. That doesn't tell a real enthusiast anything. You need to know if you're in BT 2020, Rec 709, DCI P3. They need to stop with these weird ways of naming color space and just get to the money on what it actually is. That, I think, would be a nice change. Something else that I really just think they need to work on is the way that they go about marketing these TVs, because I think if you were somebody that just was looking for a kick-ass LED QLED television or QLED television with, local dimming zones that are impressive, had they marketed this as that, this would have blown everybody's mind away. But with talking about quantum matrix technology being blooming free and you're never really going to run into those problems, we help mitigate that, take it away, all that stuff, they've really set themselves up for failure this year. Because that, for me, was the most disappointing thing that immediately made me like, wow, you guys really tried my patience with that lie. So the blooming will happen from time to time. And I was expecting to see none of it because that's what they said they fixed with the quantum matrix technology, ultra thin zones and all this nonsense. And essentially it's just like a nice, really, really nice full array. And that's really hard for me to say from a blooming perspective. Now, from a contrast and a sharpness level, it is surpassing some full array TVs out there. But when you start talking about the really higher end ones like the Sony Z9D from back in the day, the Q9FN, Q8FN, you're really slowing yourself down as to the compliments you can give this TV. Now, I haven't tested HDR performance entirely on this TV. I don't like HDR, there's no secret about that. But I say from an SDR perspective, which is how most people are going to watch most things most of the time, I think you're going to have a pretty good time with this TV. I really do. No TV is perfect, and I know everybody says that, but we're talking big boy money right now. $17.99 isn't chump change. That's not something everybody just has knocking around to throw at a television. And for the people looking to spend that kind of money on this TV, you're typically dealing with an enthusiast level consumer and somebody who's really serious about getting the best picture quality. And I can say this is impressive. This is nice. Wonderful at times even. Like, I have no issues with this Ratchet and Clank demo. All the highlights coming out of the blaster, really impressive. But I mean, we've seen brightness before, as I was saying in one of my prior videos. It's kind of like a one-trick pony that these LED manufacturers are doing nowadays, where they're just like, I'll make it really bright. I'll just throw out brightness. And I think that there's more to a TV than just being bright. Samsung still has an over-brightening issue in some areas where they can deal with, you know, just some things not looking as tight as they should. I've noticed that issue on some clouds. Also, there's a massive problem with local dimming affecting gamma. So when you change to local dimming high, it almost looks like you're in ST2084, which in English, that just means the gamma looks off. It looks overly dark. It looks like some things are being messed up, especially if you go into the gamma of the BT1886 and you start adjusting it, try to calibrate and get different results. I'm telling you, gamma starts messing up really, really severely. And it was a lot like what I saw on the Samsung Q90T, where when you set it to local dimming high, funky things start happening with the picture quality. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's a weird TV. It's good, but I'm trying to give you guys a well-rounded impression of it right now in the review process. I've still got to test the input lag. I expect it to be low. I'll see what it is. I'm still waiting to test it with more things and really put it through even more of a stress test and a ringer. But so far what I can say is I like it. I think it's a nice TV. I think it's a good TV, but it stops at good. It's not extraordinary. It's not game-changing. It's not going to break the mold anytime soon. It's not going to radically destroy anything TCL has done with the mini LED, especially their Q825. So I think from that perspective, it might be disappointing to some. But with all that stuff kind of out of the way, so to speak, and just kind of talking in a very generalized sense about all these kinds of things, I wanted to hear what you guys have to say. So leave your questions, comments, and concerns down below. If there's something you want to see specifically on this TV, I can't stress how important it is that you let me know that, because again, I'm reviewing these TVs for you guys. Don't be afraid to kind of ask me anything. And so far, it's all right. The blooming, again, as I was saying, not so bad. Like in scenes like this, by the way, like on this particular demo, I'm noticing there is some highlight dimming down because it's noticing a lot of darker elements. So that's something that you are going to face. Again, it's something Samsung has done before, but again, this Ember Labs, that was black. So logos like that are going to be fine. And so now it kind of gets to the point where it begs the question for a lot of people, if most of my logos are fine, black bars are black, there's no blooming into the frame, there's only occasional blooming, is this TV really as bad as Quantum is saying it is? Well, I'm not saying it's a bad TV, and I need to drive that home again. It's not a bad TV, it's good, okay to good, depending on the level of enthusiast you are, but ultimately speaking, there are some things they should work on. That's all I'm saying here. Now, I'll get back to work on this TV. Again, thanks for watching the #1 brand in honesty. You got more you want to see, let me know down below. And until the next video, I'll see you guys later.